Hello, hello, hola. Good evening, everybody. Yes, it's working. So welcome to this evening's session. Please be seated quietly and nicely. That's good. So we are going to begin this plenary session number 3. So far, I would say that everything has been inspiring and exciting, so I'm really thrilled to continue with this third session. I think that it's gonna be interesting for all of us, different topics. But first of all, I just wanted to say that I'm very, very happy to be here, because as our president said, the president of the NLA has said during the opening ceremony, this is far more than a congress. It's a movement, and I feel it, and I feel the energy. I feel that we are engaged in something new. I think that it was like a wave, that it started a little bit with the IFLA World Council, the days previous to the Congress. We had this declaration, and that's very important for us because we declare this climate and biodiversity emergency. So this wave is slowly building up into something that it's expanding, and it's giving us power. So I think that those days of community building within the profession were really excellent. And I would just like to try to put forward a little bit more the topics that we've discussed. So let's try to talk about climate change, climate justice, and right to landscape and this common ground. So I'd like to begin with our first speaker tonight. He is Professor Henri Bava. Yeah. It's a pleasure for me to invite him in. For the ones that you don't know him, he has one of the biggest professional practices in France, I would say, Agence Terre. They are practicing not only in France, but internationally, even in my city, in Barcelona, Plaza de las Glorias, a beautiful project. And he is also involved in teaching. So he has been teaching in Versailles, but also now he's professor in landscape architecture in Karlsruhe in Germany. So he has done a lot for the profession in both senses. I would like to invite Henri to come with me on stage. Thank you. Big applause for him.
Hello, everybody. It's beautiful to see so many people for a landscape architectural event like IFLA. I am very glad to be here. So, for sure, we are all concerned about the planet, the climate. Every one of our action has an impact at that scale, indirect or direct. But what is our scale? So at what scale shall we work? I guess it's a multiple scale. So we can start with the neighborhood scale, so with the eco-urban metabolism. So we have to fight against the crust, the hard surfaces, breaking them, opening them, working with the biodiversity, bringing the biodiversity in such urban neighborhoods with the inhabitants, with the different functions, networks, and bringing a new ecosystemic metabolism, which deals with the underground, not always visible, so many times invisible, with the roots, with the fauna, vegetation, biotopes, and we have to bring everyone together. The inhabitants, the mobility, the biodiversity, that's for sure a challenge every time for every one of us. Like this, in this project, in the inhabited wood in Lille, we have done it with François Leclerc, so it's with the choice to have, in this very difficult context, very noisy, directly on the, connected to the ring, to put some buildings around this new neighborhood, the office buildings, in order to bring the calm, to transform it into a quiet place, and reducing drastically the roads with cars, having only one road around these urban systems, and that means that every one of this architectural band is connected for sure to the road in the surrounding, but on both sides has public green on one side and private green on the other side. Public green, that means this is one of the roads, a green road. The firemen can cross it if needed. We can sometimes go there with a car, but usually it's like a park. It's empty, and you have, as inhabitants, a direct contact with the earth, with the grass, with the trees. You have shade, and it's calm, quiet, and on the other side, you have your private garden or your balcony, your terrace. Everyone has a contact with open air, with outside, through different surfaces, lifted up or directly on the ground. And sometimes we have to work in a quite congested urban context, and we are asked to bring an ecology, so to bring a kind of biodiversity in this congestion. For example, Marina just spoke about it. In Barcelona, so one of the most important place for the traffic, the mobility, along the diagonal. It used to be so like a ring, a lifted up motorway, freeway, quite noisy, and disconnecting the different neighborhoods which are all around. The idea, the choice was to bring there not only a urban plaza, but to bring a kind of biodiversity, a park, a urban park, and at the same time, fauna, vegetation, and a park in the middle of the city. So today it's a big site construction. It's a work in progress, in process, but we can already see some of the places. One, it's a big, the green area in the middle is so for everyone, and you have as well nodes, ecological nodes, protected areas, earthbound, ecological, not for people, just for fauna, for the ecology, for the birds. And this idea is to bring in Barcelona, to start here with those ecological nodes, and to step by step, maybe like a virus, but a positive virus, to invade the city, because the city has at the same time a strategy to develop, called superblock in English, or super villas in Barcelona, cancelling many roads in order to create those superblocks and in order to create pedestrian urban spaces, more pedestrian urban spaces, more green axes, and exactly in those new, in this pacified landscape, urban landscape, we can add some of the nodes which we are developing today in this new central area, Plaza Gloria Catalanes. A bit the same problem is to solve in Brussels, Place Saint-Helette. Here, the city doesn't have such a strategy like in Barcelona. Brussels has the idea to bring here cultural. It's a cultural challenge. First, bringing in this area the kind of Centre Pompidou, like a modern art cultural center here at the same place at the factory, so Citroën factory, which is converted into this kind of museum. And we have at the same time to solve the problem of the mobility, the tram, metro, the cars. And we are, it's an ongoing project now, so re-establishing plaza connected to this new center on your right, and reconnecting with the canals, with the landscape of Brussels, which is quite beautiful. At the same time, for example, here along the canal. In Belgium, but in Antwerpen, Anvers in French, the question is the ring. The ring itself, the infrastructure, is dividing the city center from the periphery, and the inhabitants ask strongly, with demonstration, with really powerful demand, to cover the ring and to develop a new project in order to connect really the city center with the periphery. We worked on this project 1 year long with one dedicated place here, so to have a dialogue with the inhabitants. We had to provide panels, models, and to organize. We were totally free to organize discussions with the inhabitants. The question was, okay, we will cover the ring. We have a huge interchange at the end in the south, connected to the river. We can transform this huge interchange into a big park, metropolitan park, and then we have to follow the ring. And along the ring, we have to choose to make the choice with the inhabitants. What is the hierarchy? What is the most important thing to reconnect first? We cannot do everything on one time. We have to make the choice, and we did it together. And we along this ring, there is several teams working on this. Paula Vigano is one of them, and then we have to reconnect every one of those thoughts. Another scale is to work at different scale, so at the same time, interscalar rivers strategies as metropolitan landscape structure and site-specific project activator at the same time. So big scale and small scale at the same time. For example, here, this is a study called Sept Park, like Emscher Park in Germany. It's a bit influenced by the German idea, German concept of river park. The park means not only a park, for sure, but it means to think together the development of 51 different neighborhoods, municipalities. So how could we to take the river as the alibi to put everyone together for one project? So this is it's called Sept Park, the river Sept Park. We started with the transversal relationships. It's not only the idea to stay along the river only. It's not only about the banks. It's about the valley, and we can take the valley of the Impressionists. Many painters made beautiful paintings along this river, but at the same time we have big, huge factories, car factories with horrible neighborhoods. So we have to bring them together, really. So starting with this panorama, and then having an analyze about the site, the geology, the history of the site, and in order to make it clear where are the urban areas, actual urban areas, and planified extensions, and what could we do for the future? Do we have in-between zones still available for landscape? We do have some such sites, such areas. We can protect them, preserve them from the urbanization, and find a program for them. So find a development, a landscape development. The most important thing is for sure to think on it about like an ecosystem, a river Seine ecosystem, the biotop and biocenosis together, the vegetation and the fauna. We learned that the fauna is crossing this river, so we need to preserve those corridors, ecological corridors. In red, you have here every one of this corridor, and then we have to negotiate with every one of the mayor of those municipalities. We organized atelier, so meeting, so with big meetings, and the neighborhood has to be constructed together. So everyone is not directly concerned from the beginning about the others, but as soon as they are confronted, as soon as they understand that the perspective he has from his own city, the perspective on the other side of the Seine or the other side of the valley is the other city, so they have to work together, and they understood that very fast, working together then to decide how to develop gravel quarries like this one here as an ecological floodable park, and accepting as well urban extensions, half-half. So for this, for example, so we had to organize it together with the inhabitants. You cannot, for sure, develop urban extension in such floodable area without them, without the knowledge of the flood, without the impact of the flood, and without the dialogue with the inhabitants, their ideas, their desires. And it was incredibly positive to work with them. And another place along the Seine, we have Carrières-sous-Poissy, a metropolitan ecological park dedicated to birds, insects as well, and the inhabitants were in favor of this totally. And for sure, we have some small places or paths for the inhabitants as well. And if we are along the Seine, but closer to Paris, we are arriving in another park, urban park. Here it's Saint-Ouen, a former industrial area, so transformed into a big park with social districts, offices, different kind of diversity of architecture around. For sure, we had to bring back the memory of the site, to bring back the program. It used to be a sport area, the castles. So bring them together to mix a bit that kind of logic with the water management. We create a new, like a new archipelago with flowing water around it. So this flowing water is bringing a new ecological atmosphere, plantations, life, living ecology in the middle of the city. But is bringing as well in two of those different islands is bringing places to cultivate directly. So associations are cultivating here their own gardens, and it's a way to mix sociology and ecology at the same place in a public park. And so it's a well-being park with different activities. So it's really a kind of city center. So almost without constructions, but with many activities in the park. And this park is as well cultivated and maintained, partly in an agricultural way, like here, and partly is simply a big panorama with quiet places in the middle. So in Strasbourg, along the river Rhine, not anymore the Seine, we are here transforming the harbor, industrial harbor, into a urban extension. We were asked to increase the number of inhabitants in the harbor, And we have chosen to not only to increase the number of inhabitants, but to increase the biodiversity at the same time. It's not a paradox, it's possible. And it's even more possible, it's even easier if we are not only thinking east-west, the connection between France and Germany, Strasbourg and Kiel, but if we are following the Rhine, north-south, and connecting the Rhine forest in the north and the other one in the south, and creating new corridors across the new district of Harbor, yes, and the new extension, urban extension, with linear parks along the canals, so creating this connection, guiding people through promenades along the Rhine to in the north, the forest, or in the south. And around this, we are organizing for sure urban typologies to increase the density for sure, but this density has a landscape structure, and this landscape structure is really connecting, it's almost a geographical structure, taking the whole new district on the east, Strasbourg, on the east, Kiel, and on the west, Strasbourg, together along this main valley, the Rhine Valley. A bit the same idea, but it's not a strategy this time, it's really a project. It has the scale of a strategy, but it is a project. So here in Pudong, in Shanghai, East Bank, we were asked to develop a park 15 miles long, and 2 years later, it's almost done. So it's not a strategy, it's really, you can feel it, you can see it. This park is reconnecting for sure with all the mobility system, with actual there in Shanghai, and bringing the new possibility to follow the Pudong River through those existing industrial sites, moving. They are as well transformed as soon as the park is crossing along the river. And in Nantes, coming back to France, along the river Loire, it's here, we are not so far from the estuary. Nantes is a very interesting city with different islands. One is, we still have a big island, but we used to have more islands than today. We used to have more Loire, so river branches, than today. So you can see it on the white part is a river branch cancelled years ago. And what does this area look like? It looks like it's a big, they call it Plaza, Place de la Petite Hollande, but in fact it's a big parking lot. One day a week, it is a huge market. It's a metropolitan market. Everyone is coming there to buy things. It's a meeting, meeting point for sure, but only one day a week. Otherwise, it's like this. It's a parking lot. The idea here is to keep the market, but don't to have anymore the parking lot. The parking lot will be underneath. We will reconnect the different facades programmatically with this huge area, and we will develop along the Loire River a new contact between the city center of Nantes and the river. It was disconnected until now, so we will develop such places along the market to big tables to be all together here along the water. And the most difficult thing is the freeway. We have not a freeway, but we have a speed road along the river, disconnecting the city from its river. In the future, we will have cars, but less cars as today. We will have the tram everywhere along, and we will cancel the big parking lots in order to create like a kind of linear park along the water with different pontons, ships, a new activity along the water. So I am at the end of my presentations. The role of landscape architects in urban and large-scale transformations is for sure essential. In order to integrate the global issues in projects at urban, at different scales, as IFLA underlined, climate change, food security and agriculture, community participation in design, health and well-being, indigenous cultures. I like this collage made for an agro city near Paris. So trying to say a bit all of those ideas here on one time. So the memory, the people, the desire, the indigenous culture, the health, well-being. In order to do that, for a more integrative approach, for more ecosystemic efficiency, for long-term landscape-led strategies, landscape architects we need landscape architects as design team leaders, not only subaltern in the team, not only advisors, not only researchers. That's fine, that's perfect, but we need sometimes to be design team leader, because landscape architecture is really a new mode of urbanism, an integrative mode of urbanism, and for this kind of urbanism, we need landscape architects. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That was beautiful. And I was impressed, you don't know that, you can know that. Yesterday in one of our parallel sessions with the young professionals, the conclusions of the session was basically that we need leadership. And they were talking about dissemination and how the profession has to be on the top, and we have to change education so that we are more encouraged to be leaders. So, wow. I would like to open the floor for questions. Anybody with a question for Professor Bava and the wide range of projects?
Henri Bava.
Henri Bava. Oh, you are a professor. Any questions? Please. A volunteer is coming with a mic. Just a minute. It's down there. Fantastic. Thank you.
It's on? Yes. Yeah. Thank you for the lecture. As you said, we need to educate differently. I'm professor in Sweden, and so you know. And so please tell us, how do we need to educate the new students to do this work?
To work on the different scales for different issues, it's very difficult. So I was educated in Versailles, and it was not clear at the beginning how to establish a hierarchy. What is the most important thing? So we used to have different point of views. So artistic point of view, biodiversity, ecological point of view, so many. So the soil is very important for sure to the pedology in French. So the soil is the most important thing, maybe. But as well as we need urbanism. You need to understand what is the story of the city, what is possible to develop. This is maybe a lack. We have a lack of experience in different. I've seen different schools of landscape architecture with a lack of experience in urbanism, story of the city. But if we can merge those two different big directions, we can really develop the project, because this the atelier, the place to work together, to bring different things. Sometimes it looks like contradictory, paradoxal, but we have to bring them, and there is no solutions for that except atelier. except working together in an atelier and trying to find the solutions. There is no solution except this one. We need really to have established disciplines, specialists around us. We are not specialists, we are generalists, but bringing them together. And the most important thing for us is the living material, plants, open soil, grounds, for sure. But not only, we really have to work with people, with everyone, with our creativity, with our soul, our experience. I am so pleased to see every time young students able to solve very complex things. Don't ask your student to solve simple things. They can solve very complex things. They are creative as we are. So they just need more experience, but they are incredibly creative. And so I am just concerned to develop more understanding for cities in landscape architectural schools. It's not only about living plants. It's important as well to work with people, the way they will live in their apartments, what is the program, how could we program the surroundings, the life, so like in Saint-Ouen, so it could be a park, but a very living place with many things to do, even by night or during the day, to learn how to cultivate, the gastronomy, to dance, any kind of thing. So the door is open to any kind of thing, but I think really the central area of this is the project and the atelier. That's what we can share with architects, with urbanists, with many people who like to work in atelier, to share ideas and to try to find solutions. Thank you.
Anybody else? Eric?
Thank you very much, Henri. I come from the Netherlands, and I think there's a new tendency among architects to design large apartment buildings and office buildings with an explicit use of landscape material. I think Stefano Boeri sort of put a sort of a benchmark in Milano, creating the Bosco Verticale, and now it suddenly spreads all over the world, the greening of buildings. I'm extremely interested in your opinion about this tendency. Does it support sustainable development, or is it just greenwashing? What do you think?
I started with the planet. We are all concerned. It's not only for landscape architects, it's for everyone. We have to work to transform our cities, our life. So everyone try to find the solution. Sometimes it could be an alibi. That's a problem, maybe. That's what you are mentioning. To win a competition now, we could use that kind of alibi, but even if it's an alibi, maybe it's good for the planet. The only thing is, I spoke about the soil, the ground. So that's the first thing. So it cannot be only a Photoshop tree on the top of the very flat roof with no depth. We really have to think the long term. How could it be a long-term solution, not only for 2 years and then the vegetation will die? It's short-term. So how could it be a long-term solution? And maybe with low maintenance, if possible. That's why we are speaking about ecosystemic solutions, which are almost, it's difficult to do that, but almost working by themselves. Yeah? So it's as far as possible with low maintenance, but a lot of earth So as much as possible. When it's thin, there is no life after some weeks, and it's a pity. So we need really to fight against the climate change. We need long-term solutions. That's the most important thing as well for projects. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Third one. Okay, just a quick one, because I have to keep a schedule. So,
Hi, thank you for
Hello.
this
Hello.
inspiring lecture. I wanted to ask, you've mentioned in several projects that you were taking away the parking spaces in order to make green areas.
Slow. Not so fast.
You mentioned in several projects that you were taking away the parking spaces to make green areas.
Yeah.
I was wondering what you were going to do with these parking spaces.
Yeah.
Does it come also with a strategy from the city to reduce the amount of cars, or just you only put them underground and like cover them up and forget about them?
That's a very, this question is very crucial. Every time we have to deal with parking lots, cars, it's even more than for other questions important to work with inhabitants. Every time we did that, we were very positively surprised. For example, in one of those projects, I mentioned a flood area, new district in a flood area. The idea is to develop an ecological neighborhood there, and we were proposing to decrease the number of cars for the population, and at the same time develop public transportation for sure. It's related. The one is related to the other one, and they were all totally positive with this idea. They were even more strict, radical than we were. We designer were. And the mayor was totally surprised because he said, don't speak about that, please, don't speak about parking lots, reducing this, not at all. It will be a chaos with my inhabitants. The opposite. They were totally radical. They want really less cars, more biodiversity, and they want to live there in a quiet place with their children. So it's important to speak with people. Sometimes it's not only a problem. Sometimes my colleagues don't like consultation, and they say they feel it like dangerous for the project. I think exactly in the opposite. I think they are the security of the project. They have to appropriate this. They will be the one to maintain it, to develop it. It's their project, it's not our project. We are suggesting things, we are transforming things, and then they will grow up with this project. And they can save their project sometimes, like in Barcelona. So after the change of the mayor, so after the campaign last time, so we had this project. The new mayor decided to stop all the projects in Barcelona, except this one, because we already started to work with the different neighborhoods around Plaza Glorias Catalanes, and they said, we want, someone promised us to have this, to cancel the freeway, so we want to reopen our space to have contact with the different neighborhoods. We want this, and they got it. So that's why it's important for us, even in a very egoistic point of view. It's important to work with people. So this is this is very important for the project. So for the life, the long-term life of the project. Yeah.
Thank you, Henri. I think we have to move to the next lecture.
Thank you.
Please, a big applause to Henri Bava. Thank you. C'était très bien. So I would like to welcome our next speaker, Erik Jan Pleister. He's